One thing we did find is that the shells that we were using work fine for light rain. However, if you constantly hike in torrential downpours, those can soak through, which really is problematic. So one thing that is nice to bring along, they cost less than $1, are these thin plastic ponchos that come with a hood, and they're incredibly lightweight, don't take up much space. But they're, when it's really coming down, it's kind of nice to put one of these on over your equipment and your clothing. Now, the only problem with them is that they don't breathe, so that if you're working up a sweat, it really traps it in there, and that can lead to problems later on as your sweat starts to get cold. The sun is pretty nasty at the higher altitudes, where the air is thinner. There's less protection from the sun's rays, so you're really at risk of both burning your skin as well as your eyes. So you do want to wear, first of all, sunglasses, a nice pair of UV protecting sunglasses. Polarizing sunglasses are ideal, and another way to help protect your eyes as well as reduce the chance of burning on your face is to wear a hat that's got a nice wide brim there. They can look silly, but they actually work quite well. Of course, you do want to wear suntan lotion on any exposed skin to reduce the chance of burning. And so get one with a high number SPF. And then don't forget the fact that your lips will actually burn quite easily. You want to get a lip balm that also has SPF, suntan sun blocking protection as well. Also, don't forget the fact that you're going to be exposed to a lot of insects as you hike through the woods, through various parts of the trek. So it's a good idea to have a bug spray that has DEET, D-E-E-T in it. You shouldn't really get anything over 30% DEET. As you get into the higher percentages, particularly the ones that are up in the 90s or 100%, those will actually melt the plastic on your sunglasses and any other plastic that it touches. So you don't want to mess with anything that high. Plus, there could be toxic problems from high concentrations of DEET. Now, if you're walking on a path that's pretty much like a dirt road that's smooth and gradual, you probably don't need hiking poles. But if you're on anything more serious than that, particularly on a mountain like Mount Kilimanjaro, anything where you're doing steps, anything where you're climbing on up and down boulders that are more than a few inches high, you absolutely need to hike with poles. Things to look for, you need to have them so that they're adjustable in height. Most poles are telescoping and are easy to adjust. I like the ones that have a spring action in them. I like to always use the spring action. And the nice thing is because it gives a sort of a shock absorbing effect when you're using them. There are different kinds of tips that you can use. What some people will hike with on the bottom are sharp metal spiky tips, and then they'll have just above that what's called a basket, which is a flat piece of plastic ring that sits up here, so that if the metal spike goes into the ground in, let's say, gravelly material, the basket will catch the pole so it doesn't slide in any further. And that's pretty good. A lot of people do that. My personal preference is to use rubber tip bottoms, which are the flat rubber tips here. And those do a reasonably good job on all different terrains of holding your grip as you're putting it down without causing really damage to the rocks or terrain that you're walking on. Another nice trick is to wrap some brightly colored tape on the bottom here, especially if you're using tips, because that'll hold the tip from falling off. But the other purpose is that as you're getting tired, it's sometimes nice to be to readily see where the end of your tip is, the end of your pole is. Another nice feature is that on some poles the handle is angled, and that just makes it a little bit more natural for the way your wrist falls when you're holding these. When you adjust these, you want them to be a height so that your hand is not perfectly right angles, but has actually a slightly downward sloped, just slightly, when you're holding this. Now, one of the tricks for a lot of people don't do the strapping right, but what you do is you've got the strap here, and you want to split the strap, and so the piece of the strap that's underneath should be the side where your thumb is going to be. So, for instance, this strap is to the bottom strap is to the right. This one. So my thumb has to be going to the right. So this is going to be for my left hand. And what you do is you reach underneath go upward. My thumb is to the right, just like that strap was to the right. And then you rest it down like that. So the bottom strap goes down and around my thumb. My hand had reached up, and this way I'm actually resting on this, and that's what's holding me up. And then the grip is very comfortable. And so it's easy to swing with these. That works for level ground and going uphill. When you're going downhill, then typically your hand will go on top of this, and you'll put your pressure on the pole. When you're on level ground, or even going uphill, this length is good, but when you're going downhill, you typically want these to be longer so that you don't have to reach down quite as far, and lengthen the pole when you're going downhill. Sleeping warm is extremely important, particularly at the high altitudes. So for instance, sleeping at the high camp of Mount Kilimanjaro, it's recommended to get a 0° Fahrenheit bag. I particularly like the down ones because they pack quite small, and the key thing is you just need to make sure that they don't get wet, because down doesn't work as well when it gets wet. You also want to sleep on a pad, so these thermarest pads, which are for the most part self-inflating. You just open up the nozzle, unroll it, and it fills up with air, and then you just blow in a little extra air to make sure it's nice and full, and then close it up. The hike up Kilimanjaro, the final ascent, actually takes place at night. So you're hiking from midnight till sunrise at about 6:30 in the morning. And so if you don't have a full moon, then you're going to really need to be using a headlamp. One of the problems is in the cold temperature, the batteries, regular alkaline batteries, don't work very well, as do, and regular light bulbs don't. So first of all, you want to have an LED light headlamp, and it's good to use one that is compatible with lithium batteries. So those are the things to look for, and they work quite well. Also, by having this on your forehead directly, it helps keep it a little bit warmer and improves its function. One thing to watch for is the mechanism that keeps this, adjusts the angle of it. You want to make sure that it's solid enough so that as you're bouncing around, it doesn't keep flopping down but stays in its hooked position. This, of course, is also useful in the tent at night, looking around. Also, it's a good idea to bring a spare pair of batteries, set of batteries, so that you don't get lost in the dark. One of the things that we came across when you're trekking is that some of the campsites are very crowded, that there are multiple groups that are trekking at the same time, staying at the same campsite. So it can be noisy at night, and it's a good idea to bring some earplugs. These foam earplugs are extremely light, but they work quite well to block out the noise. You got to have your sleep. If you like to hike with music, an iPod Nano is a good idea, and they're quite good, lightweight. But the issue is that the batteries will run out, and you might want to consider bringing some sort of charger. They do sell some that charge, like this one, with AA batteries, or there are some that recharge with 9-volt batteries. Cameras are always a good idea to bring. Trying to find lightweight cameras is a good idea. Another thing to remember always is to bring extra batteries. You'll find that the lithium batteries are well worth the extra money if your camera takes them. They certainly last a lot longer, and they're lighter. Also, it's a good idea to bring extra memory cards so that you get those final summit pictures. Some people on our trek also brought solar panels to recharge their batteries. The only thing is that the problem is that they're dependent a lot on sunlight. So, for instance, with my luck, having clouds and rain, the solar chargers don't work well. But if you do have a lot of sunshine, you're above the trees, they're quite good for recharging batteries. No hiking trip would be complete without the workhorses of the mountain, which are the duct tape and the Swiss Army knife or equivalent. Duct tape's extremely useful for repairing holes in packs or clothing. It's also good for if you need to make a splint for a lot of first aid things, as well as for sprained ankles. You can actually strap the ankle using the duct tape to help give some extra support. And then, of course, a multi-use knife like the Swiss Army knife is extremely helpful.